Well, she's up in there, and we're draining the fuel, and we're going to run the fuel system on this. Since all the body work is done, all the welding is done, now we're going to run fuel lines, and I'm going to show you how. Let's get to it. Okay, first things first is that we're going to take the fuel line, this right here, this fuel line, we're going to run it back down there and drain it out. And then we're going to have to go in the back, and because the dirt daubers, the waspers, have gotten a hold of the fuel line in the back and built nests in the end of it. We're going to get all that blowed out. But first things first is draining this fuel out. Okay, now I know this is a weird angle, but now I got the fuel line taken off the fuel pump right there on that nub, and I just run, this is just a standard basic single in, single out. I don't do a return line. I've never seen a really for like an old just hot rod like this to have a return line. I'm sure you guys have got some kind of reason why, but I just don't, and I've never had a problem. Okay, but here, right here, is your hard line coming off the frame. And so we're going to hook this line back up to this, and we're going to run it up to the engine compartment and hang it over the front fender, because I'm going to need to put a little bit of carburetor cleaner and some gasoline into that line and use the air compressor and spray it from this end all the way out the back end. Okay, and as I was telling you, the dirt dauber waspers got a hold of this, and so they built the nest in here, so I got to crack this out. And I am out of carburetor cleaner, so we're going to use WD-40 to spray in this, but then we're going to set up on the other end, down on that end, we're going to set up with the air compressor and put some fuel in that line, and we're going to blow this thing out from the front side to try to get all of this junk, as much of this junk out of here as I can. All right, we're just going to use a screwdriver. Yeah, there ain't a lot of it in there, but there's enough. See, it's just dirt. That's why they call them, in Oklahoma, they call them dirt daubers. That's exactly what they do. They take mud and they make a little nest for their eggs, and they find any kind of thing. You can see there's in that return line, the original return line there, you see there's one in there. We're not going to use that, but that's what you get in Oklahoma, dirt daubers. Well, we might have a bigger problem than I thought, because instead of it, I'm just using some WD-40 just to run in there. Instead of it running down that line, it's filling up that line and it's coming out. So we might have, yep, we might have more than one nest in there. Let's see. Oh, there we went. Okay, now let's see what we do. Okay, so we didn't have just one, we had several eggs in there. So now we got to get on the other end and get a little funnel, put some fuel in that line, and use air compressors and blow it out, and I'll set up a can. Now here's my line. Looky what I found. I found a brand new can of brake cleaner I didn't realize I had on the shelf over there. So we're going to put about half a can of this down that hose and let that sit for a little bit, and then we're going to charge the air compressors and give her a hit. Okay, we're all set. Camera set up down below. I got my air hose chucked up now. I have my old school air hose chucked up because it's just the right size to fit in there and not have any air leakage. So we'll put this in the end and we'll give her a hit. So I'm going to put this camera down underneath so you can see it explode. All right, so now that we know that we're cleared and it blew all that crap out, all right, and we'll let that sit and percolate in there so that it won't hurt nothing. Cleaning out that line, we're going to run the fuel line. Okay, so this one here, this one is the vent line, all right, so that's the vent. That one's going up, and then this one is the actual fuel line that I have plumbed to the tank. We're going to run it across the rail to the fitting over there. And then we'll figure out whether we need to drill holes, put some hangers on it, get it protected, probably run it behind, maybe run it behind the body mount here and run it probably up in here just for some protection. Okay, so this is what I did. I run it and hooked it into the fuel line with the factory clamp, and I'm just going to tuck it. This is the crevice between the main back frame and the actual floorboard, and I'm just going to use I'm going to drill a couple of holes and use some self-tappers with some clamps. I'm going to clamp it up out of the way. I know you can't get a lot of light, but we'll do this for you. All right, and I'm going to drill some holes, clamp it up out of the way so that it's protected from rock chips and things like that, because it's already run, and then it's already run down through here. And it just, I didn't have to cut that. I mean, I eyeballed that when I put that tank in, and that turned out perfect. All right, so drill some holes, and then this is my sending unit line for my gas gauge, and I'll just zip tie that across or run that into dilts, because I have to run, because my sending gauge, I want the wire hanging over here, because I have to run the wire down the frame to match up with the wire that's in the wiring harness for my fuel gauge. So I'll actually have a working fuel gauge. Okay, I want to show you a trick. I just happen to have just what I needed in my kits. And now they say these are 3/8 hose clamps, right? Now, if you put this in here and you clamp this down, it has a tendency, if you put this on here and you clamp this down, it has a tendency of pinching the fuel line, all right? Which you don't want to do. I mean, if you want as much as you can get out of that engine, you want that thing to stay open. I'm going to show you a little trick on how to size these a little better so it doesn't pinch your fuel line. The first thing you want to do is you want to find something that's about the same size as your line, which that's a 3/8 extension end, which is basically about the same size as that fuel line. So if you can get the wrap around that, then you know you don't have any pinch problems. All right, so this one is going to be a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the vise, and we're going to give it a little love. All right, we're just going to use the vise to move this around. I'll do it this way for us so you can see it. Move this around. I just want to straighten these out a little bit like this, and then we're just going to use the vise to get them pinched in to where they need to go. All right, just like that. Now this is still line up, but it's sized for the hose, okay? But it'll still line up, and whenever you clamp this down, it won't pinch the hose. Okay, first thing I'm doing is I'm basically spacing out the clamps where I want them, so I know kind of about where I'm drilling. And then I'm going to use a pilot hole and then a self-tapper, because I just want to make sure I get it right. And the quality of self-tappers I got ain't that good. I might have to buy some new ones because they seem to be snapping a lot here lately. So I'm just going to pilot hole these and then self-tap them in. Okay, mounted, all done. She's across. She's loose in there. There's no squeezage of the fuel line. Yeah, I said squeezage. So, okay, so we got full fuel line all the way across, plumbed into there. Okay, so now all I got to do is wrap this line around that fuel line to get it over here against the frame, and then this end of the fuel system is done except for running the wire down the frame rail to connect my gas gauge up with. All right, like I said, I just wrapped that line around the fuel line to get it over to the other side. So she's hanging down so I can plumb it in the future down the rail. And then the ground wire is just, I'm going to just put a nut on the self-tapper right here, scratch it up a little bit behind it, and use that frame and a nut for the ground. And that's it. she's in. And yes, I used my face mask to do my drilling on my back, and it was really nice to be able to be relaxed while you're drilling with it over your head. There'll be a link down below for these. Love these things. Okay, first problem that we run into is that this bar, when it's in there, in the hole for the fender for the filler for the gas tank, this hits the strut that the strut for the fender. Okay, so we're gonna have to cut this off to get this spun around where we need it to go to make this a usable filler for the gas tank itself. So we're gonna have to cut this off here and cut it off right here and then test fit it on. Okay, I had to re-drill those 3 holes for the filler neck because the way it was oriented, this is actually, I'm putting a driver's side filler when it should be a passenger side filler since it's a 78 model, but this is like a 84 bed. So okay, and to save a little money, I had to cut this down, as you saw, and I used an old 5/8 heater hose for the vent tube, and I used the old radiator hose, center section of it with a bend. I'll show you. With a bend in it to go around the corner for the bed here, right here, and then up to the spout. So I had to shorten spout, but the gasket is in and everything is hooked up. That's the last thing for this. Besides, I'll tape this up and I'll put a little paint inside here. And I need to look at my carcasses and find the 2 little rubber bumpers here for the filler cap. Other than that, that is the whole fuel system is now plumbed. So now it's just a matter of putting gas in it and priming it and looking for and checking for leaks. And I'll probably need to clean this up and give me a different filler cap, but she's solid on there. Sets good, double lock. So when she comes right off. So, yep. What does that say? The motor raid warning: remove slowly. Contents may be under pressure, may cause injury. Well, no kidding.